another way, but my eyes. Want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you wherever you're joining from. Want to say good afternoon to the doctor. The good doctor is in.
Good
Dr.
morning.
Marjorie, good
Good
afternoon to you.
afternoon, Denise.
Want to welcome you to the heart of the matter on Higher Ground Gospel Radio.
Thank you.
My
It's a
name is
pleasure.
Denise Johnston. For those who are coming in for the first time, want to welcome you. We have with us today Dr. Marjorie Bartholomew McWilliams. She's no stranger to the program. She's been here before. We started this last week. And this is designed just for you because I know, you know what, Dr. Marjorie, my cousin asked me yesterday, how did you know we needed this? I said, because I needed it.
Yes.
It is designed just for you. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Marjorie for those of you who are joining for the first time. Dr. Marjorie is a counselor. Her counseling practice is extremely diverse, consisting of clients from all over the world, and she spans many cultures, experiences, and background. She has a BA, a Bachelor's of Arts from the California State University in Fresno, graduated in 1974. She's a member of the National Christian Counselors Association. She has a degree in Christian counseling since 2016. She's a licensed pastoral counselor since 2017. She has a master's and she also has a doctorate from Colorado Theological Seminary. Is there anything else you want to tell the listeners about you, Dr. Marjorie? She's married to one husband and she has two children. Is there anything else you want to tell the listeners about you, or does that cover everything?
That covers everything except the fact that I love Jesus.
And also that the name of your business is You Are a Mighty Warrior Counseling Services.
Correct.
How are you today?
I'm so blessed. I'm blessed to be here with you, Denise. I'm so happy. You're asking why do this show? And I'd like to add a little something from my heart about why I am so happy to do this show. I have a heart for Africa and the African nations. I have been a couple of times to Africa, and my clients from Africa uh, have expressed to me how difficult it is to get mental health services in those countries. From my experience with you, being from Jamaica, and from my clients who are from Haiti, my clients in the Caribbean, I have found that it's the case there as well. Mental health is either very expensive or really terrible, not very. Is that okay to say not very good about my colleagues and what's happening? I The services aren't good. Shall we say that?
Well, I cannot say that the services in Jamaica aren't good because we have really good professionals there.
Mhm.
It can be expensive,
Yes.
and we don't take advantage of it.
Yes,
That's the thing.
and with my experience, I should be specific. In Zambia, I found that there just weren't many practicing therapists there, wasn't available. And what my battle cry is at this point is that with the internet, the services are everywhere to take advantage of. If you have internet connection, you can get linked up with a therapist. Many of my colleagues counsel for free, and it's available. And so that's what's exciting to me about being a part of this broadcast is that um, I can help people to realize that they too can get some mental health services regardless of where they are located.
Right. Right. So, is there anything that you want to share with us today? I know something from your heart, something regarding mental health that we can look at, and then we can accept the callers who
Sure.
are wanting to
Yes.
hear your
There's
tips and advice.
two things on my mind today. Both of these things have come up repeatedly last week and already this week. The topic of not being able to forgive and the topic of being offended. I have a book that I have been reading again. It's called The Bait of Satan by John Bevere. A very dear friend of mine gave it to me quite a while ago, and I don't know how many times I've read it. And just about this whole topic of offense. Offense is something that will manifest in your life when you've taken offense. There's fruit that goes with offense. It's negative fruit. And the fruit of offense is hurt, it's anger, jealousy, resentment, strife, particularly bitterness, hatred, and envy. And the consequences of picking up an offense are a life full of insults and attacks and trying to protect the self, wounding, feelings that you've been wounded, division, separation, broken relationships, and betrayal. And it's very interesting that that Greek word for offend originally referred to the part of the trap where the bait is attached. So the word offense signifies that someone is laying a trap in your way. So offense is the tool that Satan uses to bring people into captivity. I've had this come up again and again, like I said in the last week and a half, of people who've been greatly offended by something and their life has turned into a festering bitterness and they're needing help learning how to forgive. And I'm hoping that sometime, Denise, here we can dwell on that whole process of forgiveness and what that means as far as mental health healing and in my mental health practice, what happens when you are able to release and forgive. Have you ever experienced that, Denise? The whole
That
concept of
that
being offended?
no.
Like today, has
I,
it happened to you?
I
Have you been offended today by anything?
I'm just messing around when I said no.
I know.
Of course,
I know you. I know you. I know you.
we've all been offended, and especially when you've been hurt, when
Uh-huh.
you're carrying and holding on to hurts and pains, you tend to hold on to offense. Not only do you offend others, but a lot of time how you receive what others say or do is coming from a place of hurt. And so you receive that as an offense.
Right, and there's the book talks about 2 kinds of people, those who truly have been offended by something, and those who perceive that they were offended.
Yes.
And so often I have found when clients actually approach the person who offended them after some coaching on how to approach with love and with grace, it turns out that the person who spoke those words either didn't mean it at all or it was misconstrued. It was interpreted incorrectly. And so all this time this person has been walking around with this root of bitterness that has been manifesting in so many unpleasant ways.
Too often we carry it and we hang on to it, and we tend to not want to change because it's a place of comfort, to be honest with you, but it's a destructive place.
Right,
And I find that hurt people tend to hurt people.
right.
Oh, I have several examples. Yeah.
There's a tendency to also want to build up a wall for protection. And so the focus becomes one of self preservation.
Mhm.
And it's a festering wound. It's a festering wound. So when you've been offended, Denise, how has it manifested in your life?
Several ways. It depends on the level of the offense. When I'm going to use my sister's murder as one, I wanted revenge. I wanted to go in the Jamaica Constabulary Force to kill. I can't put it any other way. That was my sole purpose. I just wanted to kill. And when my family talked me out of that, I wanted to do it another way, you know? Maybe I could befriend some bad people and get them to do my dirty deeds. I thought a lot of things. I was angry. I mean, I wanted to hurt somebody. So the least thing that you would do, I wasn't quick to forgive. I would want to hurt you because I wanted revenge. Then there is the softer side of it. And I call it the softer side because this is a perceived revenge now, perceived offense, sorry. And I can give an example recently where I was trying to tell someone that I was tired, but I was whiny about it. And what was being communicated from me and from the person were not being received by either of us because this person was offering help. But what I heard in my offense is, okay, since you don't want to do it, then I'll do it. And so I was offended, not realizing that this person was under pressure and this person was saying to me, hey, I know you're tired, so let me take this load off you. And in that, I in turn hurt someone else because someone else was asking a simple question. And I didn't bark as in shouted at the person, but my tone was offensive because I didn't want to have to do anything for this particular place in which I was at. And you're asking me to do something relating to it in a place where I've been offended. But then I thank God for the power of the Holy Spirit that held up the mirror in front of me and showed me where I offended the person and the root of it. And that helped.
There's a really neat quote from this book. It says, trials in this life will expose what's in your heart, whether the offense is toward God or others. Tests either make you bitter toward God and your peers or stronger. If you pass the test, your roots will shoot down deeper, stabilizing you and your future. If you fail, you become offended, which can lead to defilement with bitterness. When my clients come to me and they have a root of bitterness because of an offense, I like to ask them, is there any truth in this? Is there any truth in what they said to you? Sometimes there is no truth, in which case I say, then dismiss it. But if there is truth in the offensive comment or act or whatever was done to you, if there's some truth, then it's very important to look at that and, okay, make some changes, rearrange some things, take it to heart, fix some stuff. It's an opportunity to fix some stuff. And then the next part of this that I like to teach my clients is to say, what does this tell me about them? The person who offended you. If there's no truth in this, what does this tell you about them. A lot of times it can reveal that the person's jealous, the person has a bitter root of resentment about you or something. It switches it around so that the emphasis is not so much on you, but it becomes an emphasis on the person who offended you. What does this tell you about them? How does that sit with you, Denise?
It is absolutely correct. I mean, I've had to question a situation recently and I wondered if it was coming from a place of jealousy because what the person was saying had offended them. It could have simply been a text message to say, "Hey, can you just pull back on sharing a little bit, or can you, drop me from the mass text because something as simple as that." But yeah, I was just wondering, a lot of times I've had to question that, especially in my calling when I hear some things, when I've been through some things, I have to sit back and say, is this coming from a place of jealousy or is it God, what are you saying in this? I love to run back to God. Just hold on one second for me, Doctor. I want to remind the listeners that they can call in. We're not here to talk to each other.
Although it's fun. I enjoy talking to you, Denise.
Of course, as much as we're enjoying it, this is more for you than it is for me. I did my sessions with Doc, and I'm happy to be getting more, but it is for you. So you can call WhatsApp number 825-343-4486. There is no topic that is off bounds for her. It's a Christian station. I just want to remind you that, so keep it PG. But you can call 825-343-4486. You're dealing with grief, you're dealing with hurt, you're dealing with a heartbreak, um, you're dealing with offense. Whatever it is that you're dealing with, you're struggling with your children, the doc is here to help you to work through your situation. 825-343-4486. Go ahead and start making your calls. She's here for a limited time. So, Doc, we were saying,
Yes. You know, I love that quote that trials in this life will expose what's in your heart, whether the offense is toward God or others. So often, I think as humans, we run away from pain. We run away from hardship. We run away from the hard topics or questions. So when we're offended, we just we know that we enjoy running it around in our heads and replaying it. We enjoy feeling the anger, but we don't enjoy looking deeper and finding out what is this exposing in my life. This offense is exposing something in my life. Insecurity, unresolved issues from my past. It's an opportunity. Where is everybody? Maybe it's
just so you know, we're waiting on your call. It's 825-343-4486. You don't have to wait for someone else to call. I know that a lot of people are sometimes shy and you want to hear someone else call and then you start calling, but by that time the program will be finished. The number is 825-343-4486. Go ahead and make that call.
if people don't call, I'll just keep talking to Denise and asking her about her life.
I think they're enjoying our conversation. That's the thing about it.
Oh, too much? Why
To listen.
let's just go quiet for 10 minutes.
No, we can't. I'm afraid we can't do that.
Oh,
but I can remind them of the number for those who don't have WhatsApp. The number is 825-343-4486. That's 825-343-4486.
But one of these shows, Denise, I really would like to get into the topic of forgiveness and how to do that because we don't do it very well.
So there's a call coming in. Can you hold one moment, please? Thank you for calling the heart of the matter. Dr. Marjorie's in. How may we help you?
Yeah. Well, thank you. On the topic of taking offense, I so appreciate that being brought up, and it's so funny. Well, funny, God, funny. Um, just yesterday, I was texting with a friend, and I playfully texting, and then the third or fourth text that came, what was said didn't sound playful anymore. That whatever I had said before was not attractive. That's what the person said, and I could just feel that gut punch. And like you said, Denise, I wanted to fire back, something, but I'm learning to take a few breaths. So, Dr. Margie, um, what is your advice at this point? Is this a face-to-face thing or a text thing or just let it go thing? I mean, it wasn't a huge offense, but it could be. I could let it be a bitter check mark against this person.
What may I ask you what you had just texted to her that caused that reaction?
Um, it's very silly. Um, okay, they okay, the weather app. I saw this person in the morning and dear friend, and I said, "Oh, it's humid out because there's going to be a thunderstorm this afternoon." Well, and then the other person said, "Well, I look at my app and it says there's no thunderstorm." I said, "Well, mine says there is, so we'll just see." And I thought we were kind of playing. Well, then in the afternoon, when there was a thunderstorm, I text back, "Now whose app is right?" And it and the other person said, "You always have to be right, don't you?" And I thought we were still playing. And then I said, I don't know what I said. I think I said, "Of course." And then they texted back, "That is not attractive." And I'll take your answer off air. I'll just listen to you on the radio. Okay.
All right, thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Thank
Um,
you so very much. God bless you.
there's so many things to say. The first thing is it sounded to me like the caller had this text banter going. There was a period of time that passed, and then another texting session happened. You have no idea what happened to that person between the first texting session and the second. Um, and that's always a factor when it comes to offense. You don't know what's happened in this segment of time or even in the person's past history. You don't know what's happened to cause them to snap at you like that. And so she says, "You always have to be right." So you, with the hurt heart caller, is there any truth in that? I wish you were still on the line because I'd like to ask you that. Is there any truth in that? Do you always have to be right? If there is some truth in that and you're experiencing a sting of, "Oh my gosh, that is true," what an opportunity you have now to take it to the Father and say, "Who else have I done this to? And how can we correct this so that I don't come off as a smarty pants know it all?" If there isn't any truth in that, if you really are someone who is fairly humble and you were just playing, then you're able to dismiss it. And it's between you and the Lord, really, as to whether you need to approach her and say, "I am so sorry if I offended you or if I stepped over a line. Um, uh, can we move forward from here, or is there more that needs to be said in person about this?"
I like that question because so many times I've offended persons with my texting, and it's not intended, but again, it's how it's perceived.
Right.
I remember I lost someone, not that I was very close to her or, you know, an associate, but it was during the Olympics time when we're all on a high. You know the Jamaican fever during Olympics, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So there was a young man who he did not stand at attention during the national anthem. He had won a gold medal, and everyone was on his case, and they were calling him names and stuff like that. And the person posted about it and said it was disrespectful that he didn't stand. And I said, everybody has been at this guy. Give him a break. She didn't take it kindly. I mean, she started digging into my past. You're an ambassador for the country because you're a festival queen, so you should know better. And that's not something that he should have gotten a pass on. And I'm not asking you to give him a pass because he didn't stand. I'm just saying because everybody else has been on him, you know, and it ended a friendship. And to be honest with you, I'm okay with that because if it was that shallow and petty that could have caused the end of a friendship, then I'm good with that. But it went out of proportion, and no amount of private messaging to say, hey, you could send me a message about this. It went from because you think you're educated, because you have a master's degree, or because you have a degree, and it went where it should not have. And I was like, okay, I'm just glad to get out of this friendship because this is indicating something else. I didn't get a chance to apologize for the way the text was received by her. I was attacked. And
So,
I
what
understand.
does that do about her?
Pardon me?
What does that tell you about her?
Shallow. That's the only word I could find. Shallow. Because if it is that, she eventually said she wasn't aware of what was going on. Because I said, when you are afraid with what's in the news, then I'll get back to you. And that caused more offense because at that point she was saying it was after that she said she didn't know what was in the newspaper because she's not reading and stuff like that. So I said, when you are afraid with what's going on, then I'll get back to you. And that's when my education and my whole life came into play
Yes.
on
Now,
social media.
here's another point. This is all really about communication, isn't it? And how we communicate with each other.
It is.
Something that I have had to learn in my old age, and I try to teach my clients, is approach. When you said to her, Denise, you go back and read the news, and then I'll talk to you. You're putting yourself in a place of superiority. I know the news. You, silly person, don't know the news. And the natural response is for that person to get angry and defensive and lash out at you. I had a superb example of this about how communication goes awry. I was playing tennis last week, and uh, it was with a group, and we had permits to use the courts. And about 8 young men showed up with a soccer ball, and they were going to start playing soccer on one of the empty courts. And my friend said, "Are you going to talk to them or should I?" And I said, "I've had a day. I'm not going to deal with it." He goes, "Well, I'm going to deal with it." So he goes over there and he goes, "Hold on, you guys. This is for tennis only. We have permits for these 4 courts. You guys are not allowed to be on this court." And these young men said, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm with the tennis club." And they said, "We have a right to be here. We pay our taxes." And I saw this thing escalating, and he backed down and he came over. He says, "Well, I did what I was going to do." So I said, "I'm going to give it 20 minutes and then I'm going to go take care of this." So 20 minutes passed. The guys were waiting with their soccer ball. I got the permit and I went over and I said, "Excuse me, guys. I apologize for my rude friend. We have a permit." I showed him a permit, "and we'll be using these courts until 8:30. After that time, you're welcome to play, but we have them reserved." And the guy said, "Can we play here until then?" And I said, "Well, this person over here is giving a lesson, so it'd be best if you just waited a while until he was done." And they went, "Fine, that's fine." So I went back over to start playing tennis, and my friend who'd been so rude said, "So was I a jerk?" And I said, "Pretty much." But this was such a great example for him. He says, "I've been accused of not having a good approach." And I said, "That's exactly right. I deal with this every day. It's about communication." And the way he approached those young men, they immediately took offense and they immediately wanted to protect themselves. And it was just this escalation of emotions and anger. I gave it time to simmer down, and then I went over with my expert counseling skills, and I just said, "I'm sorry that happened. Here's the situation. Can you wait until 8:30?" And they responded to it beautifully. It may be my white hair. It may be the fact that I'm an old lady. I don't know, but it's approach. So when you approach when you said to that gal, "Go back and read the news, and when you come back, we can talk about this." Do you see what I'm saying, Denise?
I do know that you put it that way. I really do, but I was already offended because a lot was had been said, so I can
Right.
see how it had escalated. Just want to remind the listeners that they can call 825-343-4486. For those persons who are texting my phone with responses, I'm going to ask you to call and share your response. I'm getting some
Are
text
people
now.
offended?
They're sending it to my personal phones, but I want them to call and talk to you.
Oh,
I want the other listeners to hear their input into this dialogue and for any other situations that they have that they may need mental health tips and advising, you
have I
can call.
have I offended anyone yet?
I really don't think so. I'm not getting those. I
Hmm.
think I think these persons are listening in and are enjoying our conversation, so they don't want to break to call, but
Oh,
I want to call.
we're easily interrupted.
Thank you for
So
letting them know.
yes. So I have found, uh, in moments of conflict, when I come from a place of humility, it's always received so beautifully. Well, I shouldn't say always. Most of the time, it is received very beautifully. I like to say, "So help me understand. I'm not understanding what you're saying. So help me to understand because I don't I don't see what you are saying." Do you see what I'm saying, Denise? You come from a place of humility rather than saying, "If you hadn't done that, if you hadn't spoken to me that way, I wouldn't have dropped the plate and had the dinner go all over the table." It's you, it's your attitude. If you can come at the person from a place of my feelings have really been hurt, and I wanna understand what you're saying. Coming from a place of humility goes a long way when it comes to communication in tense situations.
Mm.
Tell me something that somebody's texted you, Denise. Oops, I just put you on the spot.
That has caused me offense?
No, just you said people were talking about the
Oh,
program
oh, oh,
and
the
calling.
text, the text, the text, the text. I want mm. I have learned to be silent and bite my tongue. This has happened to me several times by email correspondence on my job. A response that I had on one occasion was, "Thank you for bringing that to my attention." When I when I got home, I bawled my eyes out and prayed for the peace of God. I was not at fault with my email. They just did not like my response to the matter that was at hand. I'm going to ask this person to call. This is a lot that we would love to explore. I know you're at work and it might be difficult, but come on, give us a few minutes of your time. 825-343-4486 is the number to call.
Sometimes sometimes I find in counseling situations, when someone easily is offended, there's a whole host of reasons why. Either they had been beat up as a child verbally by a parent, and that was never allowed. There was never communication allowed so that there could be dialogue. Um, so sometimes when there's a criticism that's given like that, you just jump right back into this old pattern of behavior when you were a child where that's how my dad used to talk to me, or that's how my mother used to scold me. And then all of these demons from the past come rolling out, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the boss, it's the authority figure.
I have an example of that. A friend once came here and I felt like she was bossing me around. I'd offered to do, the favors of transporting her to where she's going and back and accommodating her. But I was starting to feel obligated. And because she's a bit older than me, it was even when I say, okay, we're going into the store, but we only have 5 minutes, that wasn't respected, even if I gave her 20. And I'm always late, so I'm flexible where that is concerned. That I'm confessing on air. I'm flexible where that is concerned, but it got to the point of feeling disrespected. And what it did for me is it took me back to my childhood. My Because I'm the youngest one, I was used to being told what to do, when to do, where to do, how to do. I never liked it then, and I still don't like it now. So when she was doing that to me, it brought back trauma then. I think I had to call on you for intervention because I remember that time there was a blow up in the car. Yes, that was the situation. Yes.
Yes, I remember that. And rather feeling rather than feeling any kind of shame about that, this is an opportunity for you, Denise, to see that and to make sure you don't project that onto your friends. It's a real opportunity, and I love that word project because that's a clinical term that we use when what's happening here in the here and now, your reaction to that situation is because of something in the past. And so you project it onto what's happening in the here and now. Just the fact that you know that and that you had that revelation, isn't that a tool that you're using to help yourself when it comes up again?
It definitely is. It definitely is. I realized what it was then. I recognized what it was, and I even said it to the person, you know, but I don't think that it meant anything when I said it.
To the person because they couldn't
To the
relate. Yeah.
Yeah. The number to call is 825-343-4486. 825-343-4486. Go ahead and make that call. You've been asking for her. 825-343-4486. It's the WhatsApp number. Go ahead and call Dr. Marjorie. The doctor is in to help you.
And
So,
Denise, I was going to ask you, Denise, don't you know people who are so easily offended? You know that whatever you do, it's not going to be taken the correct way and they're going to make it an issue.
I think that was in that same case that I mentioned earlier. It's the same thing with her because of her past, because of the offense that she has or the traumas that she has endured. She couldn't see what I was saying. There was a blockage. So no matter what, there was an offense.
How do you respond to this scripture, Romans 12:18? If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. What does that mean to you?
For me, a lot of times it makes me hold back from some of the things that I really want to do. The people I want to strangle, the revenge I want to take, the way I want to answer some people, you know, it makes me hold back and go in prayer instead. I've fought some battles, but I've held back from a lot more. And that scripture does that for me. And part of that is the example that I saw my mom lived because she never had a quarrel with anyone. And even when the offense came against my family, she never spoke revenge. It would have been an easy thing to do because she had reason to.
Right.
Yeah.
So
She
I have the opposite situation. I did not have that modeled in my family, so I didn't see like you did a beautiful example of how you do that. Had to learn how to do that.
like I said, she even talked me out of wanting to go into the police force to take that revenge. She knew my heart. I didn't have to say it. Yeah. But isn't it beautiful the things that we never had? Just learning them along the journey and allowing them to mature us and change our hearts along the way. Because there's so much that I didn't have that I've learned and I am still learning that is providing the healing that I need
Yeah.
and the maturity.
Denise, did you have good mentors along the way?
Never, not even in my jobs, I was always thrown out in the deep water and made to swim up. Always. And I'm always told I saw something in you that you could do. Let me know that you could do this. I guess it's the survivor in me. Never.
You're amazing.
God is amazing.
God is amazing. That is absolutely true. So many obstacles, so many difficulties that could and do, those obstacles that do break people. You have maneuvered your way through them and learned from them.
The thing about growing up the way I did, my mother caused us to look up. And when you look up, you see a wider view of the things that are happening to you and around you. So I always have a bigger hope in God. I always had faith that things could be different, regardless of what it is now, regardless of the offense, the situation, the trauma that I'm in. I knew that things could be and would be different. And she instilled that in us,
Mm,
you know? There were part of the looking up is also looking out. So I'm always looking out at persons who I saw living differently. There's one young lady that I call my peer group influence. She's a broadcaster as well, but we grew up together. My Her mom was my mother's employer, and I don't want to say I tracked her journey, but at every step of my journey, I've seen a pattern in hers that I could emulate. So while not having a mentor, someone as a guide to say I can sit and talk to, and that person can show me the steps, I've always tried to find persons that something in them would resonate with me. And Jamaica is good at there are persons in Jamaica because it's such a small country. You get to meet a lot of people. Um, you get to see people in all areas. Like we had a woman prime minister at one point. And if that's not something to emulate for a child, a female child growing up, to see a woman looking like you coming from the grassroots of Jamaica being a prime minister, then I don't know what is. So Jamaica is good at providing that kind of um, exemplary mentorship, for want of a better word. For example, we have a Usain Bolt, a Bob Marley. There's always that one person who is rising that
yes,
let you know that you can too. Yeah. So that's my story.
beautiful. So topics that I'd like to talk about as the weeks go by: forgiveness, how to do that. I'd love to talk about grace and how terrible we are at extending grace to others, extending grace to ourselves. What does that mean anyway? Another thing I would love to talk about is who we are in Christ Jesus. These are some big issues, and I know that people throw those words around a lot. Forgiveness. You just got to forgive. Oh, you just got to extend them grace. You just need to know who you are in Christ Jesus. But what do those three things really mean? I'd love to pull them apart and see how they apply to our own mental health. How to extend grace to ourselves when we've made a mistake or when we have offended. How do we do that? Does that sound good?
Very good. I would love for us to dive deeper into that because I've often said to persons that being a 14-year-old child going through trauma, I didn't get counseling and no one showed me what forgiveness, I mean, except for my family who did not speak, or my mother who didn't speak revenge. I did not know what forgiveness is. I was just told, oh, you need to forgive. But what does that look like?
Right.
What would that look like for me? You know, when
Yeah.
y- I've never known anyone to have been through this kind of trauma before it happened to us. So, who could I look to know what this kind of forgiveness is? This is not just saying, okay, you hit me and it hurt, but all right, when the hurt wear off, I'm talking about two children playing because that's what you're used to. I'm not talking about abuse now. You hit me and it hurt, and tomorrow we're friends again. You've taken something from me that was a mainstay in my life, would have made a difference in my future. How do I forgive when the person who offended, I don't even have an opportunity to have a conversation with to say what was in your heart when this was happening,
Yes.
you
I
know?
found that most of the time when you are going through the process of forgiving, you actually do not include the person who offended you.
Now I know.
Yes,
Did not know what it looked like then.
right. It's not necessary to go to the offender and ask them to be a part of this because of the trauma of it and the monstrous nature of it often. So I'm finding that that's something that people don't realize is you don't need to include that offender in the process of forgiving. Um, there was something else I was going to say. Oh, I know. The old phrase, everybody's heard it, you need to forgive and forget. That's just horrible. That is just terrible. That is terrible advice because often you must never forget what happened. Forgive, yes, but never forget what happened. For instance, if you were sexually abused as a child by Uncle Billy, and here you are now an adult and you have children, don't forget what happened and have your children be babysat by Uncle Billy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Forgive, yes, but there are so many important things about forgetting that we need to not forget. I don't know if that's making any sense.
It does. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. We throw these phrases around and they're ridiculous. We have to stop ourselves from saying that. Yes, forgiving is really important. It's releasing that person from the prison of yourself, of the prison of your mind that you've been holding them captive within your heart and it's polluting you. And forgiving is a process of releasing them from the prison that's infecting you. How do you do that? We can go into that in the weeks to come.
In the weeks to come, we will definitely be exploring a lot more topics. And I thank you, Dr. Marjorie, for coming on today to share with us with the heart of the matter. It is about that time to wrap things up. And I just want to ask you, is there any final words that you want to leave with us today? If it's even only to encourage the listeners to call to let them know that you don't bite,
Not
they can
too
talk to you.
hard. I don't bite too hard. Um, yes, I would encourage you if you have been offended, and I know you have somewhere along the line. What does that tell you about you? Is there any truth in what happened? It could be years and years ago. What that person said or did, is there any truth in this that you need to examine? So pick that apart for yourself. The rest of it, just dismiss it. If there's no truth in it, let it go. Bless that person. Pray for that person. Pray a blessing on that person.
I want to thank you, Dr. Madge. I want to encourage the listeners to call. I know that a lot of us in Jamaica have endured the trauma of grief. She's here to talk to you. She's here to help you to work through your grief, to provide counseling, the counseling that you need to work towards your healing. Dr. Marjorie, I thank you for coming on today. I thank you for sharing with us and for just taking the time to bless us with your wisdom. God bless you.
Thank you. It's my privilege, Denise.
Alrighty. Have a blessed day. Want to invite the listeners on on YouTube and on Facebook to join us on hggradio.ca.